I'm going to get started. So today we're going to talk about the evolution of board meeting technologies. We're going to talk about the past, where we are today, and also really take you into the future. And I am Parun Chara, the founder CEO here at Passageways, and I am, I'm going to be doing this today with David. David is the product manager for Onboard, so he's got tons of great information for us as well. And we both will be co-piloting this. So there you go. So quickly about myself, I have a fair amount of background for this topic. Certainly been looking at the past 14 years in terms of what's going on in the secure collaboration space, mostly as part of leading Passageways over the last few years. And then I also have been serving on several boards here in the community. I serve on the Indiana University's Simon Cancer Center based out of Indianapolis, also on the local Lafayette Big Brother Big Sister board, and then been involved with the Purdue Marketing Board. This is a board that advises the students and the faculty and the advances being made in the marketing realm. And then David.
So I come from a technology background, many years, couple decades worth of being in the computer industry, and I've been a product manager for a few years now, a software developer prior to that. I was actually a technician in the Army at one point where I got really introduced to technology. This was the early 90s. And then I've got a BS in computer science from the University of Texas. So, I'm very happy to be here, and let's see where we go with this.
Very good. So let's start this with a brief history. But even before I do that, can I have a quick survey question be tossed at the different attendees? And we appreciate you guys being here. To really kind of get a sense for what audience we have today, this would really help. So if you guys can take just a quick second and answer the question that's in front of you, I think that will really help. The question being, how many boards do you currently serve on, if any? We're getting in quite a few answers, and we have about a third of the audience actually at least on one board, another third not on any board, and then there's a couple of you guys who are on 2 or 3 boards, and there's 9% of the attendees who are actually 4 or more boards. That's interesting.
Wow.
Perfect. I'm going to quickly actually share one quick question. We're going to close out this poll, and another related question: are you serving on any committees? And this could be on the boards that you mentioned, and quickly tell us if you're serving on any committees, and we'll go from there. I promise you, after this question, we'll take you through a quick, fast history of how the boards have evolved and how technology has been applied in the board space. All right, so we're going to end the poll at this point, and what we have is about 18% of you guys are on 4 or more boards, which is very interesting. Another 10% are on 3 or more boards, and certainly more than 50% of you guys are actually really on one committee or less. I'm saying boards, I meant committees. Good. With that out of the way, let's talk about a brief history of where how things have evolved. So, we thought long and hard about, where to really focus this particular conversation. And really, we've sort of looked at, a time lapse of the evolution of board technology, and how mostly this is a pursuit to be more and more efficient. Why? Because boards tend to be at the highest end of the organizational decision making. This is the tip of the sphere. This is actually really just the last sanctuary that the CEO and the management has to make some of the directional calls that every organization needs to make every now and then. And being efficient, in the boardroom doesn't really mean just using less paper, the board packet or board book size shrinking. It actually really is more about getting to the right decisions as quickly as you possibly can. And that's the true measure of efficiency when how it applies to the boardroom. So let's start with how some of this evolved. We'll pick it up at maybe in the 1980s. Essentially, the printing era, if you will, where the printers ruled. HP used to be the top company in the world. Really, most of the innovation was about being able to print documents faster and colored printouts, and then being able to some other interesting innovations between the 1980 to 1990 time frame were being able to bind books very quickly in house, being able to ship them inter-office couriers, being able to copy these documents. These were some of the technology innovations that helped how board meetings started to happen, where instead of just a discussion with pen and paper in front of you, now you had some slides and reports, and those sort of things started to show up in the boardroom. And then in the next 10 years, this is what we're calling the digital era. This is where lots and lots of interesting things happened. Of course, emails became commonplace and mainstream. Everybody was sending information back and forth on emails, and information was increasingly being created in all kinds of document formats, PDFs and PowerPoints and rich presentations, Excel files. All of those became very common. In this same decade is when the cloud was also invented. In fact, if you go back and look at it, Salesforce, right around the turn of the century, were the big poster child on a cloud-based software offering. This digital era is interesting because right around that end of the century and turn of the century, what you saw was a lot of interesting external factors that actually started to impact the way boards started to consume information. This is the time of Enron failures and some of the other big Tyco and some of the largest organizations that were always thought of as very well run organizations. You started to see actually really kind of just be able to hide all the information from the board and really kind of run all kinds of interesting schemes that the board was blissfully unaware of. This led to a lot of regulation, especially the Sarbanes-Oxley is basically been a big driver in just people rethinking the boardroom and the board meeting itself. In 2003 January is when Passageway started, and this is interesting because you'll find that we were right in the midst of all of this. We are one of the oldest, the most experienced provider in this space. And back in 2003, we started to work on software, which was mostly for collaboration. And this was collaboration software for the enterprise is how we started out. But pretty soon we found our software. Now it's called Ensemble. Back then it used to just be called Passageways. That software started to be used by boards as well and senior management team members as well. And as things continue to evolve, we found our software to be, starting to be pulled in directions which were more specific to the board use case. We're talking about minutes and routing of information, such that the board book itself, the compilation of that, and all of that started to be requested, and some of that we started to actually kind of just be on the forefront of those innovations. But we are still talking about laptops and desktops and things that were not very conducive for the boardroom. The big bang really happened in January of 2010 when Steve Jobs unleashed an iPad interface on the rest of the world. And for the first time, what we and I'm sort of a historian in this space because I've been along for the journey. Suddenly, instead of us trying to tell people about the innovations that are happening that might be handy for your board meetings, we saw the reverse of that happen, where our customers started to ask us for that information. Demand pull, and there was a lot of demand pull. People were talking about the multi-touch and the screens that were actually really kind of just gorgeous looking, and just wanted to consume information that way. it also solved a massive problem that IT departments, always talked about, which was, I don't want to have so many directors have brand new hardware in their hands, and I'll be, tech supporting so many folks that are not going to be on the network, and and so on and so forth. iPad solved all of that because there was no slot. There was only one button, and there were, just very few things you could do with it. And it was, sort of almost a purpose-built device for the boardroom. Well, if you're me, that's how it appeared anyway. So now, this particular era after 2010, from 2010 till where we are today, we're calling this sort of the secure collaboration era, where we are moving past the meeting process and solving for the meeting process itself, to now actually really kind of just thinking more about things that make you rapidly consume and distribute information in a secure way, and rapidly do that such that it's also allowing you to collaborate, and not just distribute and consume, but also collaborate and get to the right conclusions faster. Of course, we're not all the way done yet. So as part of this presentation today, we're going to actually tell you what we think is going to happen till the year 2020, and then wrap this presentation up. On the far end of this presentation, we're going to talk about what's going to happen, all the way between in the next decade after 2020, or thereabouts. That's going to be talking about the far out future. Okay. Go ahead, David.
So, we look at boards and we say, we've migrated from paper and we've gone through the digital era where things are being emailed around. Now we're talking about secure collaboration, but what does that mean? What on earth is secure collaboration? Well, we get the security part. It's the absence of sharing information with people that you don't want to share the information with, and bringing in this model of you've got this cloistered environment where everything is encrypted and so on, and it's really good for compliance. Whether it's HIPAA compliance or FERPA compliance, or if you're university, or some other type of compliance, perhaps. There are dozens out there in the world globally, the collaboration part is really the hard part now to understand. So what is that model? If you look at Google Apps, you see little heads pop up across the screen on the top where you've got so-and-so logged in looking at the same document as someone else, and you can both work in real time on the document. That's the collaborative model that we're approaching, and the board software is not quite there yet. None of it really is, but we can talk in a little bit about where things are going. So we're starting to expect these types of things, these types of behaviors from any software we use, whether it's ubiquitous across all platforms. So whether you're on your mobile phone or your desktop or your laptop or your iPad, you still want the same experience across devices, but you also want to collaborate across devices and at the same time as somebody else. So really you get this model of interaction rather than just submission. So you run into things in the boardroom. I'll give you an example of one thing that we have in these types of software for boards would be surveys or approvals. So now you can see real time, if you arrange it in such a way as an administrator, you can actually cast a vote or have your board members cast votes, and they can actually see the real-time results of people, just as we saw a minute ago in this presentation. But you can see that in the boardroom, and you can enable that or disable that. And so you get this real-time collaborative model. You can even add comments before the vote closes, and then people can read each other's comments if they wish, and you can turn that on or off. So those types of things are really important, and people, like I mentioned, begin to expect that in their software. Bruce?
So all this, newfangled technology, how did this actually really change the boardroom? David talked about, multiple people collaborating in real time, and, and really kind of just utilizing all this information. So let's, quickly take a look at how the board meeting changed, and we're going to actually really go all the way back to, the digital era to now actually really comparing it with, where we are, which is the secure collaboration era. And we're going to break this up into, three distinct phases that a board meeting can easily be actually, slotted in. There is the pre-meeting, preparation phase. Then there is, what happens in the meeting. And then there is the post-meeting phase where you are actually looking at, just the processing that, every board meeting actually requires after it's done and dusted. So, first off, in the pre-meeting phase, in the paper or the email world, and a lot of you guys are actually, perhaps still on, still using paper for some of these board meetings, and you will relate to some of this. This phase typically comprises of collecting all the information. What all is going to be in the agenda, who all are going to be, sharing that information with the person who collates all of this. This is the board professional who's in charge of collecting all of this. And then often you'll have to hoard that information, even though you have 7 out of the 10 documents already with you, because you're still waiting on a couple people. And then finally you have to, print and, go through the, I know that a lot of you guys are still going through the merry-go-round back in the office and trying to compile this board book. You sit around and you add section by section and then bind those books and then ship them. Or if you're emailing, you are still sending emails with, 20 MB, file size, and a lot of email systems that are actually tossing these back at you, and so on. And then often there's also, the last minute change, the chaser material that you have to then send, and so on. Now, in the secure collaboration era, what you have today is being able to use templates, being able to drag and drop documents, being able to partially publish your books. What you already have should be shared with the directorship. And then you also have certain collaborative efforts, whether it's designing the agenda or it's actually allowing your CFO to upload the information that she needs to contribute for the upcoming board meeting. And all of that is happening in the pre-meeting phase in the secure collaboration era. During the meeting, it's a similar story. So, certainly what you have is, the supplementary information that you typically find that's, directors actually have to, be shared with in the paper world. This is a common scene where you walk into a board meeting and there's a pile of paper that everybody has to grab a copy of, which is often the information that just changed on you. And then, in the meeting itself, you're circulating certain documents because you're trying to get signatures from them. And then also, often there's an archive of an old board, book that is relevant for this board meeting. You still have to bring that up and then give a copy to anybody who wants to look at it carefully. And then, at the end of the meeting, all these, papers that you have or emails that you send them that people end up printing anyway, you don't know what to do with it. And often there's this risk of, losing that information.
You wind up with a proverbial paper trail.
And that paper trail, can sometimes come back and haunt you. I mean, you could end up easily, in fact, I think this is the most, sort of easy way to end up in the headlines for the wrong reasons. And, because there's so much information that you have to guard that is in the board books. Even if you're a non-profit somewhere, that does not actually really mean that you could be careless about the information that you share at the board level. And then often I've seen that boards require the board members to shred the information right after the information. Right there, as you're walking out, you have to shred the board book. Well, that's interesting because all that information is often needed right in the next, 24 hours often, because you suddenly think of something that you need to reference back. Now, in the secure collaboration setup, directorship comes with, the board books are already there on your iPads or the iPhones and whatnot. And then you have the ability to, certainly, make annotations and walk in with your notes on you. And not only the notes from the last meeting, you might even have the archives from all the prior meetings handy. This leads to better discussions. It also actually really allows you to stay focused and, not be actually really kind of just, asking questions that you would have normally asked because you didn't have that information handy. Be able to search for things in your board books. And then certainly, overall as a team, whether it's the minutes or the agenda or the changes in the bylaws or, some approvals that you that you decided on, voting records, attendance records, all of that is one clean system of records that's established in the system. This board meeting actually ends very differently. You're not shredding anything actually. You're walking away confidently, knowing fully well that there's a system of record that's always available at your fingertips whenever you need it.
And if you happen to forget your device, you log on to another one. And
you can go to another device, and and then there's the ability to remote wipe things. If by any chance, if you lose your device, all kinds of safeguards have shown up in the secure collaboration era. The post-meeting scenario is not very different. After the meeting is done, there's often, the minutes are circulated on emails and people are making changes and all of that. Lots of email that happen after the board meeting is something that's, again, one of the pain points that people often, experience. I've experienced that myself. And then certainly, people still have all those documents that they are holding on to, whether it's a published, agenda section, or it's a new report that was shared. And often I find that people, basements in your homes are perfect places to really build your own sort of library of all the board books, which should never happen. Now that's of course, in contrast with what you see in the secure collaboration era, where minutes are circulated as part of the software. Any relevant updates that might be there, you get notifications. Notifications can be received on your iPhone or even your Apple Watch, whatever it takes to get people to be on top of things. And then any other board process, this could be the annual survey that you need to do, a questionnaire that needs to be done for assessment purposes, or this could be
conflict of interest.
Any conflict of interest documents that need to be signed, and all of those can be handled rather gracefully and really kind of just in a very streamlined manner. All this talk about the difference between paper and email. Let's just quickly look at what this might be. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to actually really quickly try and get to share my iPhone and see if I can actually really share.
So while you're pulling that up, you talked about documents and email. Look at the security model for just a second. When you email a book, you're sending a PDF through something that's inherently insecure, which is email. That's out there in the world now and susceptible to any kind of attack. For board software solutions, the document contains some sort of digital rights management where you can only view it if you set the settings the right way. You can only view that document inside the portal, which is one reason why it's called a portal. So you actually need to access, you need to authenticate, and you cannot take the document out unless you as a board or as an organization decide that that's what you want the directors to be able to do. So the security settings can go either way, and they're very flexible that way, all these various products. Go ahead.
Very good. So that's a good point. This is permission-based, much more secure. In fact, so that we are clear about what we are seeing here is my iPhone actually being projected on the screen. Requires my Touch ID, and right away I'm into the application itself. This is our onboard application. This is what this is what we have evolved over the years, and this is what it's come down to. A smartphone today can hold so much information. It's unbelievable. In fact, I find myself actually citing this fact and again. I can get to a particular document on my phone much faster than what I can do even on a laptop. And if you don't believe it, the proof's right here. Here are the various boards, that I mentioned that I'm on. So I can go to any one of these, organizations. So if I want to go to the Big Brother board, I can easily just get to my July meeting and my August meeting. This is an actual board meeting that I'm a member of, and you can see that there's, 12 of us on this board. The agenda is right here, and the actions and all of them are actually right here. This is an organization that I certainly have all kinds of confidentiality agreements that I've signed on. So I'm going to actually go back to a much different organization. I'm just going to talk about passageways. while I'm giving you this example, these are meetings that we've had at Passageways internally. Okay, and what you see here is a meeting timeline. These are all the meetings that we've had using Onboard. These are not just board meetings, but you can see there are certain all staff meetings. There are also some planning meetings that are in there, and all of those. I have the ability to actually go into any one of these meetings and pull up the agenda from that meeting. Instantly, I know who all were there, what we were talking about, and we can certainly actually get to any section of that meeting book. So if this was a board book, then I'll get to the exact section on that board meeting right away. And you can see that there's various different slides that are loading up, and I can scroll up and down. I certainly have the ability to look through various updates, and then I can actually also I have the ability to really mark certain annotations right here on my cell phone, believe it or not. Suddenly your fingers can do a lot more than you thought.
More than just walking.
And what you also have, the ability to really kind of just search through stuff. You have your actions lined up right here. You also have notifications showing up right here. Of course, a resource center that's built in. So when I'm talking about some of the pieces that we mentioned today, the board member has access to all this information on their fingertips. We literally mean fingertips. This is on the go. We decided to show you, essentially just the iPhone, just so that we can actually kind of just give you a sense of how this looks on a phone. Now, when the same information is shown on an iPad, it's going to look a little different. And certainly you'll have the ability to really kind of just see that in just a second, as we are projecting an iPad now, and you're seeing a board meeting load up, and you're seeing the same sort of setup. You have a little more real estate to work with, but you are starting to see a typical board agenda, and you have the attendance built in. You have all the information annotated, all the annotations that this particular user has logged in and made. Those are available. A summary of all the annotations is also there. Again, this is just the end user difference that you're seeing here. This is not talking about the admin, sort of the work stream that an administrator has to do. That is also vastly improved. But as a director, you see a lot more information be available at your fingertips. At this point, we're going to actually, quickly show you a couple more things. Being able to show votes there, and take those votes in real time, right in the board meeting itself, and have a clean record of that being established in your software. Those are some interesting, things that you could easily do today.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, I'm going to go back to what we were discussing, and really take you back to where these things are actually really kind of headed. So the question I often get is, well, this is all fine and dandy. Is this for us or not? And I think that's the question that I still have showing up, and I'm going to actually really kind of quickly get to that question first. So the general idea is, there are some anecdotes that I'd like to share. First being that once I was just driving on I-65 very close to our office, and I got a call from my friend Mark, who is the CEO of Filene. And Mark actually really, called me a day before his board meeting. And he said, Parun, I have a board meeting tomorrow, and I thought of you mostly because I think we need to fix this situation. And I said, and what is the situation? He said, you mentioned that the board book this time around got to be more than 20 MBs. And we've been trying to, send this email to various board members, and seems to be bouncing back. And, and there's some challenges around this because the board meeting is actually ready tomorrow. And this is the 11th hour. And I said, Mark, if you don't mind, give me access to your staff, and let's see if we can actually try and get this through, even for your board meeting tomorrow. And, Mark's a funny guy. He said, haha, that's pretty funny. And I said, no, for real. And, I came back and I looked at, this situation and shared this with my team. And the next day, they literally actually had their first board meeting and onboard. That's how easy this switch is. While it might not make everybody comfortable, the fact is, by going digital, you are not precluding the ability to be able to print the paper books for a few of those folks who really still need to,
Yeah, you can always
look at
print.
information on paper. Yes. And then the second anecdote is actually really, the fact that we are a lot of our customers today are actually really people who are working in the government. I am actually really saying this, so there's no way to get around this one. The fact is, the world over, governments are notoriously slow in adopting technology because of the bureaucracy they have to deal with. And by the time the government starts to look at technology, it really often is it's crossed the the chasm, if you will, and it's well past mainstream levels. Now there is a certain category of technology that only government actively gets to play with, like the drones and all the
Fun
fun
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So outside of the fun stuff category, when a software gets to be used by the local chamber of commerce, as it is used here in this town, or the visitor bureau here in Indiana, or economic development boards in Carolinas, that's an example of the fact that this technology is certainly jumped the shark, if you will. I will also give another example. This is one of my favorites, and and I want to be careful about how I say this. When we are getting inbound interest from all the way to from Africa, where organizations in Africa, we have a few customers in Kenya, we have a few customers in Nigeria as well. It is also a sign of the fact that even when the bandwidth is not good enough, even when the internet is actually not as reliable, people are still looking to go digital in their boardroom. In fact, we proudly serve the Kenyan judicial system, literally the highest lawmaking body in the country is using Onboard. We also have the maritime agency in Kenya using this software. We also have certain corporates in Africa also using this. And Sterling Bank is one of the largest banks in Nigeria, and they're using Onboard, as is Floor Mills, which is the equivalent of GE, I believe, and General Mills. Uh, in also in Nigeria. These are examples of corporates and big banks. In fact, Banco de Brazil is one of the largest banks in South America, if not the largest. These are organizations that are using our software all across the world. And the fact that you are in the United States, and take it for somebody who wasn't born here, I didn't really, I didn't win the ovarian lottery, as I, sometimes say, and I had to move here. There is a big difference in the way the devices are used here, the way the bandwidth is available, the reliability on even the basics like electricity. There is really no reason for you not to be considering evolving in the boardroom and really kind of going digital there. David's got a couple more stories to share here.
So we have a customer actually north of us who has a 90-year-old board member, and we've had some pretty good stories come about from him. But basically, he was part of the adoption process. He wasn't just a passive user. He was the fact that he was able to get right in, a little bit of training. He was all in favor of it, and basically said, if I can do it, you guys can too. And so the rest of the board was moved into our product, and that was really fascinating. So we're moving to because of the iPad and other touch type devices like the Surface Pro that you're using now, Parun. We're running into this situation where there's an easier transition to make. You don't have to sit with a desktop and a mouse and a keyboard anymore. You get this tactile feel. If anybody on the call has used a Kindle before, you're probably familiar with some problem that I used to have reading books. I had to put a lot of pressure on the book to keep it open if it was new, if it was a paperback, or if it's a real heavy textbook or something. Unless you're in the middle of the thing, it wants to close on its own, especially if it's a new book. And I didn't like that very much. So I thought, well, maybe I'll use C-clamps or some kind of tool to hold the pages open for me. Well, now I don't need to worry about that anymore because I have a Kindle. It doesn't matter how big the device is, or I mean, how big the book is, or how big the file is that I'm reading. It's the same weight, has the same mass, and all I need to do is scroll through it. But it's still very tactile. I can still use my thumbs or my fingers to move things around, and with our board software in general, ours included. I can annotate things with my fingers. I can type things. I can type notes and highlight things. It's all very tactile and provides that feedback for the user. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide.
Before we move on here to the next slide, I would like to quickly add that this technology shift that is happening, these tablets and mobile devices, they are far superior to the paper option in a lot of ways. If you have a old parent at home and you give them an iPad, suddenly they rediscover the ability to read, because they can have the font size to continue to actually be as big as they like. The backlit screens are far better than reading newspaper on paper. And there are certain factors which actually really are specifically helpful for the more experienced board members that you might have. I should also say that having delivered the board technology to hundreds of organizations, one interesting commonality is that you hardly come across a board where there's at least one or two board members. There are not even one or two board members who are going to be not welcoming this change right off the bat, and they're going to hold out. And in fact, you should let them, and that's quite okay. As an organization, when you think about where this is going, you cannot afford not to be using the best technology out there in the most important meeting that your organization has. This is the inner sanctum of your CEO and the think tank of the organization. And most organizations are producing products that you are trying to attract the millennials. You got to start adopting a technology that allows you to make decisions faster. And while you need that experience in the boardroom, there are ways to actually kind of marry the two together, where you have the digital board meeting, already being, a reality, while you publish, the board book and print those out for a couple board members. That's quite okay. That's actually really par for the course as I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
All right.
Slide.
Next would be,
so we run into this situation where we're in what we call an application economy. But what really is that? If you look at your phones, your tablets, you've got applications available. It's not like we've never had applications before, but now we have the ability to have those right at our fingertips. There's no real delivery of any package, no software, physical delivery of anything, and that lends to sort of ease of use and kind of a better understanding of software. You interact with it more, you feel it more, because you're actually touching screens, and if you need something, you can just that phrase, we have an app for that, so many years ago, seems like it still applies. We also run into the situation where we have this continuous partial attention. We've got these two people here representing our typical directors. Many of you on the call probably experienced this, where you of course get sleep and you commute, but you try to squeeze in a little bit of workout here and there. You got your day job, free time, family, but you don't have these distinct buckets of time. It's not really digital in that you do one thing and then you do the next thing and then you do the next thing. Instead, it all kind of blends together. So by carrying your board packet with you in physical form, in a binder, you might have access to it wherever you go, but who wants to do that? Nobody does. So why not keep it available in digital form, just like you can with all your Kindle books? In fact, your whole Kindle library can be in your pocket, whether it's on your phone or your actual Kindle device or whatever. So the same thing goes with your board book. If you have some time standing in line, or maybe you're commuting and not driving, but maybe on an L train or a subway or something, you've got some extra minutes. You come through some board books or board book materials, maybe you take a vote, you go on to your day job, you come home, maybe you do a few things with the kids, and you go on and do a little bit more for the board to prep for the next day.
And that's good. A few things. So what we've done here is we have some prototypical board members that you want to have on your board, people who obviously know how the future is going to look like. In fact, these are a couple team members here. Some of you guys might recognize Rashmi and Matt. We thought that it would be good to put their pictures up here as people that you should target for adding to your boards and committees and so on for the future. This is the typical day that these guys are living. 8 hours of day job, a couple hours of free time, fitness. Go to the gym, a few hours of Z's that you can catch. Certainly have some commute, some reading that you like to do, spend some time in the community, and then of course a couple, 3 hours, 4 hours if you're lucky with the family. This persona is no longer actually doing any one thing. They're even when they are at their day job, they are actually really doing other things as they go. And you have to find a way to fit into that world. You have to find a way to give them the information when they are waiting in a queue somewhere or they're waiting to catch a flight. And that's what the digital economy actually allows you to do. If each one of these items that you see here, whether it's about your day job, your free time, fitness, you will notice that there is an app for each one of these things. And somewhere in there, that community time that somebody wants to spend might actually really be the board that they serve on. You got to give them an app to really kind of be able to process that information as efficiently as possible, and at the same time also give them a chance to actually really kind of just be more effective with the time they're contributing to this good cause. Go ahead, Dave.
So we try to develop this work-life balance. We try to stay connected, tablets and smartphones. But our board software should really be able to do the same thing for us. In fact, all our board materials should be able to do the same thing. They should be able to transmit through the airways. They should be able to be carried around from device to device. I can share my notes, or I can have my notes shared across all my platforms wherever I log in. I can go ahead and move around from place to place and still access everything. And I'm just carrying my phone or my regular stuff around with me, my briefcase that has my laptop in it. So let's move on here.
Mm-hmm. So David, if I was to ask you, having looked at this problem again and again, what really separates the brilliant from the good and the average? What's the secret sauce, if you will?
Well, looking at the slide, I'm going to say design, but I think that that's really true because we've all dealt with really clunky software before, and I think we're in an era now where there are so many apps out there. You really start to notice the ones that are done well. They really stand out to you for one reason or another. Maybe it's because they're task based and they just do a couple of things. Like I give you a couple of good apps to use. I use Wunderlist. That's WUNDER list, and it's really good for tasks. I mean, my wife and I just share our grocery list back and forth, or maybe Evernote, where I go take notes, and I've been using that for many years now. So my notes are everywhere I want them to be, on my laptop, desktop, iPad, or iPhone. And so we expect that from our apps. We expect good usability from our apps. There's something that's inherent within a really good app, though, that helps you understand it better, and that is design. You want a minimalistic or kind of an essentialist design where you only have in there what's absolutely necessary to get things accomplished. And that's really what we build into our design philosophy here. Let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah, and clearly, and we've seen how much emphasis we've put into just the design aspect of this solution. We have other solutions that we offer as well. The stakes are very different when it comes to the boardroom. You cannot afford to have a board member be confused. The software almost has to be sort of in the background. And I think anybody who changes the boardroom by allowing the team to really go digital and really changing the way they process information is going to actually end up becoming a hero in the boardroom. And this is an opportunity that any one of you guys on the call should actually really kind of just think about seriously. You hardly have a chance to change the most important meeting in the organization so fundamentally and so easily.
And for generations.
And for generations.
Once you start down this path, you're on the upside of that curve, not on the part that's dwindling and going away.
You will end up changing the boardroom, not just in ways that you would easily understand, but you'll start to continue to see this actually give you more and more returns, as you're now suddenly able to recruit board members that you never had a shot at. They can remotely attend. They could actually really just be doing this even when they're traveling and so on. All right. So, all that was just a quick, sort of assessment on what may actually be happening in a lot more organizations. More common than you would think. And this is an image which actually really kind of just tries to convey the state. This is the present state, unfortunately, for a lot of organizations where you're spending a lot of horsepower in trying to keep your organization updated, whether it's the CRM software or it's the marketing automation that you're using, or your account management software, or just your website, and all of those different pieces.
And they're all tied together.
And they're all tied together.
That's
they all
the
work.
Sophisticated part.
Absolutely, and it works like the back half of that car is actually a Tesla, if I'm correct, and it is the modern future that we all actually deserve to see. But the front half that that car is actually really it's actually almost still in time. Nothing changed. It's actually really still the same meeting. And now there is a chance for you to actually really kind of just change this this part of your organization. And if this picture actually resonates with you, certainly send us an email. We'll share the slides as well. We'd be happy to actually discuss more about this. That said, we're going to actually try and wind down here with now talk about the fun stuff, talk about the future itself.
This is the candy right here. So, we've gone through this. We've come to a point now where we're not just talking about secure collaboration anymore, but now we have to have this presence of meetings. So when we collaborate real time, we want to see that other people are there. We want to see what they're doing, how they're behaving. There really becomes this sense of being there, but a lot of times we can't actually be physically present. So how do you do that? You do that through video. You do it through real-time meetings. You do it through phone calls, of course. Everybody has probably done the conference calls we're doing now. For the future, we're talking about doing all that real time, but also with some augmentation to it. So we've got AI and VR there, and let's flip slides to find out what we're talking about by those. We'll get to a couple of slides. One slide here first. So we've got the future of boards and board meetings, software in general. I guess more specifically, over the next 3 years. We're going to start to see things roll in there. We're going to see that Kindle experience where you can look at a Kindle book and see that 53 other readers have highlighted this section. Well, you're not going to have 53 members on a board unless maybe you're a large university or something. But you're going to have some insights that you're going to want to glean out of it. And the simplest thing to do is just to anonymously present. So many people have highlighted this section. Some people have found interest here or there. You're probably going to start to see that creep into to board software as well. Real-time data being embedded in the board book, so plucking information right out of your CRM or your sales system, whether it's Salesforce or some other tool. Real-time numbers or in real-time graphs come up instead of just static information that was there assembled a week ago. What if you need to see stuff right now? I think, Varun, you were mentioning something earlier about inventory, have things moved in the last week since this presentation was assembled? Yes or no? You'll be able to know that up to the very second of the board meeting. While you're in there, you can watch things change. And that's kind of where I think this type of platform is going to go in the next few years. Same thing with voice and video and just being, like I said, present in the meeting. So you'll be able to, we've been talking about this here with our stuff. You'll be able to not just review the documentation and see your notes, but also click the button that says join meeting now, and you're in the meeting. You're seeing everybody's faces. They're seeing your face. You sync back and forth. Maybe you want to present, so you present and everybody else's tablets look at and see what you're currently doing, and somebody else takes over the presentation, so now you can see what they're doing, and all that can happen remotely. So and there's really something great about the possibility of going remote, and that is increasing your talent pool. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide.
And quickly, before we round off the 36 month, we are going to be short on time here, but The collaboration piece is going to actually get a little more, friction free while you're collaborating. One of the key aspects of what's going to happen in the boardroom is to make sure that you're not adding more liability. We've seen the ephemeral messaging that's showing up in some of the applications, Snapchat, sort of being a prime example, where people are going back and forth, and the messages actually really are there for a short amount of time, and then they are not available thereafter. A lot of the legal pundits are exploring if that might be technology that might apply when it comes to board communication, one-on-one messages that are there, but at the time of the board meeting, they're there, and after that, they actually go away. The only real record of the board meeting, could actually just be the minutes, and that's it, and archived books. And adding more trails to your communication is how a lot of organizations get into trouble. So this space is going to actually get a little more clearer in terms of how to deal with these advancements as well as some of the challenges that are specific to the boards.
So in the remaining couple of minutes here, we're talking about 2020 and beyond. So the next decade after 2020, what are we going to see? I think we're going to see some artificial intelligence. We already, it's not like we don't have these capabilities today. We actually do, and you've seen that when you go buy shoes on Amazon. They tell you for the next 6 months that you need to go buy the same shoes. I think it'll improve much beyond what it is today with AI, artificial intelligence, virtual reality type things. But we're gonna actually try to look in the boardroom space to see how we can glean insights out of the data that's been assimilated. So rather than just looking at the raw data, you don't actually have information. You've got data that you have to comb through as a director, and you're going to need to augment that with some additional insights.
And my closing comments on this would be certainly the future is very bright. I see lots of fun stuff actually coming down the tube here, and certainly the goal always remains to make the meetings hyper efficient. What I mean by that is getting the best decisions as quickly as you can. And it's very hard measurement, but really we are going past the board meetings into just making meetings in general be very efficient. Secondly, you see a lot of personal assistants, whether it's Amazon that's talking about these assistants, or Siri, the one that my personal favorite still remains Siri, and my Microsoft has their own assistant. I think the board preparation could also use an assistant where somebody just reminds you quickly, hey, you still have these 3 things to do before you get to the board meeting, and you are actually backed up on traffic. You need to start right now, otherwise you're going to be missing the board meeting. And so on. And then last, a couple more fun ones. Augmented reality is actually really kind of just, the insights that you might get, from board members. I think there's so much data that I can see the case for Watson, which is, the AI agent that IBM talks about. Actually, it is something that might lead us to have a digital sort of agent as a board member for every board. This is Watson, who's attending board meetings and is actually really correcting things as you go, recording minutes and creating the records and analyzing what all has been discussed in the past. This is insights. These are insights that are not possible for any human to be able to process. And so that's another interesting thing that I can totally see happen in the boardrooms. And lastly, virtual reality. Whether you're sitting in in an office or you're on the beach, you should be able to attend meetings and raise your hand just like you were voting earlier. And all of that can happen with VR and some of the new firepower that everybody's putting into VR, whether it's Facebook or Google or Microsoft. And clearly that applies in the board meeting where you can have everybody sort of attend virtually and still be almost physically be having the same experience. I think that's most of what we have, and on that note, we'd actually have a couple more questions for you guys to answer before we wrap up. And as we push out these questions to you, I should actually add, thank you, David, for coming along on this particular summary of where we are and where we are headed.
Thank you.
We also have our information available on the slide. You're always welcome to send us questions. There is going to be a recording of this webinar that's going to be available. If you'd like to see that recording or ask for it, certainly you can shoot us an email. And then, of course, on our website, remember, there's always a free trial awaiting you. Hundreds of boards have already, benefited from this. And, today could be that day where you start that journey with us. So the question that you have is primary device. Is it a desktop or laptop or iPads? And what we are seeing here is about 27% are still on desktop, 31% laptops, 22% on iPads, and then a non-iPad tablet, 18%. That's interesting because we do have a Windows app and an Android app cooking here. So we can see why that's happening. Very good. Quickly, another question that's coming at you, and this is very similar. It's actually our last question, right, Conover? This is, which is your second most used device? Because we realize we all live in an era of multiple devices as well. So quickly, we're trying to see this. Your second most used device. Still have lots of people actually punching in their information, and there you go. About 2/3 of you guys have already voted here. So we have 31% of you saying desktop, 35% on laptops, 7% went up to 11% actually on iPads, 4% tablets and non-iPads, and then 21% on mobile. Mobile is your second device, which is great because all board software needs to run on any mobile platform.
Sure. Even your watch.
Even your watch. Very good. With that, I think that's everything we've got. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.